What an intro, man.
That was good. Yeah, that was excellent stuff.
Because we were on time.
we were on time and we didn't start the intro like 4 different times. Anyway, so everybody, welcome to the Nightcap again. Second episode of the 2024 football season. I'm Levi, joined by Matthias and our newer guest, or newer co-host, I should say, Dylan Sainer, former Iowa State tight end. How's it going, everybody?
Go ahead, Dylan.
It's been a week, man. It's been a week between the building is on fire stuff from last weekend and the hate week stuff kind of colliding midweek. So
yeah,
it's been interesting.
Wait, you say there's a building on fire?
No, but that's what everybody's acting like.
Oh, okay. I thought like house was on fire or some shit. Like, oh, just chilling.
I, for one, do not believe the building is on fire.
I don't think so either, but everybody else does.
Oh, Matthias, should we address Sarah's comment on YouTube?
Oh, yeah. Hype tapes probably not going to happen anymore.
So here's the deal with hype tapes. The problem here is that Iowa State used to release lots and lots of really cool B-roll action footage from the game beyond just the normal highlights. And for whatever reason, they stopped doing that a few years ago. So
it's probably because we were making better hype tapes than they were.
Honestly, there's a non-zero chance that's true. But the problem is right now, there was actually last season they didn't even release highlight cuts after the games. This year, they at least after North Dakota, they at least put a highlight tape on Twitter. But
needless to say, is we don't have a camera. We're not on the sidelines for the games. We don't have anything to get more footage.
We have asked about getting a camera on the sideline. We've asked about the Iowa State marketing department letting us have some of the B-roll footage that we know that they shoot. We've talked to them, and it's kind of no dice right now. So unfortunately, until we can get more footage that isn't just the Fox Sports, the actual like broadcast highlights, we're kind of out of luck here. And sure, could we take the highlights and put a fun song over the top of it? I guess, but
that's
boring. We're not here to crank out boring hype tapes just because we just to have one. As soon as we can get like legit good B-roll footage and good action shots from like the corners and the sidelines and all that, until we can get that, we're kind of just out of luck, unfortunately.
So probably not this year.
I would guess probably not this year. It kind of seems to be a product of just whatever interns they've got in the room and what they're motivated to do. Kind of seems like that's how it goes. So
if I had a gripe about our marketing department, like you see like all these other colleges like putting out like, I know we probably would never do like a USC, but like the USC one that they had before the LSU game,
crazy. It was awesome.
Like, why can't we do cool shit?
Like Oklahoma has always had a very good marketing department. They always put tons of good videos out and stuff like that. Like I wish they got after a little bit more and did more cool stuff, but
it's also tough when you spend 3/4 on defense on a,
also that
3 yards in a cloud of dust the whole game. So it's kind of hard.
Specific to the last game, I guess there might not have been a ton, but
it would be tough. Yeah.
But they didn't even do them all last season. I don't know if they did much in 2022 either. It used to be that they only ever did like good like action cuts after wins, which was fine because that's usually when the good plays are made. So whatever.
Yeah, whatever. A good key to a good hype tape is as much as you like, somebody's gonna roll their eyes at this, I guarantee you. But like with your hype tape, you gotta tell like a little bit of a story with your music. So
Matthias and I have discovered there is a little bit of a science to putting these things together and to really getting a good one put together. And if you don't have like, both Matthias and I like to put like, if they've got video of Coach Campbell making a locker room speech, either before the game, halftime, and post game or whatever, and it's really good speech. That's a good way to open a video.
And we've utilized like every Matt Campbell speech there is known to man at this point in time, like 12 times over.
Yeah, we've recycled about every clip in the bank about 4 times.
We don't have a new recent one, anyways. Like
there's nothing we got. So yeah. That is the current status of the hype tapes. Is there's just nothing for us to put together because Iowa State is just not kicking out the footage.
Well, they actually play one like they play one right before the team gets on the bus to like leave the hotel and go to the game, and it's usually pretty fucking sick. Like
I've no doubt about it. Yeah, I wish
But
there's like no way that they're gonna you reuse that. But I like those every week. I was like, I don't know if it's like you're about to go to the game. It was just something about the atmosphere in the room at the moment. But it just like I always thought, man, if this got out on social media, people would love this shit. But
and they used to do that like in like 2017, 2018, 2019 was really when they kicked out a lot of really good action footage like after almost every game.
Rhodes era, they would always have a game day primer.
Yeah,
like
they would always have a game day primer. And they actually because and we started doing hype tapes because Iowa State used to do hype tapes and then they stopped doing them and people liked them. Because it was during the Paul Rhodes era that Iowa State actually made and produced and kicked out to the public their own hype tapes.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just kind of stopped doing it out of nowhere. So then we filled in to pick up the slack. And unfortunately, they have given us no support.
Maybe they felt the same way we do sometimes. It's like, this kind of sucks to do too.
Honestly, there's times where it's just like, oh, I got to crank one of these things out. I mean, it got to the point where I got pretty good, where I could put together a good one with some decent cuts and stuff like that in about 2 to 4 hours. But like, if you remember that one I did, oh gosh, what year would it have been? I'm trying to remember now. I think it would have been maybe 2017 or 2018 or something like that. The song I did it to was like 6.5 minutes long. Well, I did one that was Through the Fire and Flames by Dragon Force. That one I bet that took at least 6 hours to put together. It might have been more. Like it was like I sat down like after work one day and just worked on until like midnight. And it turned out to be a great video, but it took forever to put together.
Well, as much as I'd love to keep talking about hype tapes, we got some North Dakota to dissect and Iowa to look forward to. But I'm actually gonna spin this towards Dylan right away, because Dylan, you've been inside the locker room after a week 1 affair with like you and I or whoever it may be, and
like
the fans are like,
and all that.
And the fans are like, the world's ending, but like. Take us inside that locker room currently, because I mean, I'm guaranteeing it's not too different from what you experienced. Like, what is the message right now from Matt Campbell and the guys?
So I would put large sum of money on the first sentence out of his mouth in the locker room after the game was, "It's hard to win in college football." That's exactly what he said.
You know what's funny is that on the Cyclone Fanatics Inside Zone that has Jarrell Brock and Jake Remsburg and Colin Newell on it, all 3 of them said winning games in college football is hard.
Yeah, that's exactly what he said. Which, not completely wrong. Week 1 is for, honestly, I kind of prefer the fact that it went the way it did, because I bring Arkansas as an example because they're 5 miles down the road. They played Arkansas Pine Bluff. They're like, I'm not even sure how they're considered Division I. It was 70-0. It was like 50-0 at halftime. That kind of performance in week 1 covers up a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're going to go into a real game against Oklahoma State and have like stuff show up that was probably an issue before, but they didn't really know. So you kind of get in a, not really a barn burner or a shootout or anything like that, but it was like, not exactly what people were expecting. So you get to see some stuff like, okay, well, we can be better here, we can be better there. There's stuff that would normally get hidden up if you just, if it's 50-0 at halftime, everybody's happy. You don't really like look too deep into it. When the game turns out like it did, you actually get to look at the tape and be like, there's a lot of stuff there that you wouldn't even see until Iowa. So I think there's positives in there for sure, and we'll get deeper into it. But I'm not worried like most people are.
It's kind of funny too, because I know even leaving the stadium on Saturday too, I think there was just a general feeling of like, it wasn't like disappointment or anything. I mean, they won by 3 scores or whatever, so it's not like, it's pretty hard to walk away from a 3-score win feeling really disappointed, but there was some feeling of a little bit of a letdown thing, like, okay, we're going to go out here and we're going to bust some ass this first week. And then it was just a 21-3 game. But
the first 2 plays didn't help, right? You get the first 2 plays. And it was kind of like San Diego State, was it, when they got rained out?
South Dakota State.
Or South Dakota State, sorry. Yeah. CTE. Wow. Whatever. Might as well put Antonio Brown on my picture.
Please don't go that
route. But it was kind of the same deal. Like, we started out like that, and I really felt like that game we were going to just blow them out of the water, which we might have. But I think that's where some of the letdown came, because the first drive, you're like, oh, well, this is going to be fun. And then it kind of wasn't.
Yeah, well, and there was a couple kind of contributing factors, because I know it was hot that day, so every fan that had been sitting in the stands all day was just out of patience at that point. And that long 12.5-minute drive by North Dakota, I know that wore down on everybody. It just felt like, I mean, surely that is the equivalent to being waterboarded by the CIA someplace. Like, I mean, that was a horrific experience.
And I'm sure they've got a good coach, and I'm not sure about their culture and stuff. Like we kind of talked last week. Not super familiar with the program, but I think that they had a good game plan, honestly. Like our defense is built, like Haycock's built our defense for the Big 12. He's built it to not give up the big play.
Right.
Like we'll give up. I mean, you've seen it in years past. Like we'll give up dink and dunk underneath. We'll make a team drive, and then you try to make the big play, and you'll turn the ball over.
Yep.
And so they had a good game plan. Like their quarterback was like 9 for 10 for like 30 yards at one point. Like take what they're going to give you, and that's what they did. And so, I mean, I think they probably played as good of a game as they could and executed the game plan they wanted to. Just got beat by a better football team.
Well, and you know, it was funny because I think last week I can't remember if it was on here or if it was on Down the Pipe or not, whatever. But I mentioned that I thought like that North Dakota State team was gonna look in that game a lot like you and I did in 2019 with Will McIlvain, who just turned into Johnny Manziel out of nowhere or whatever. Like it was kind of like that, where you had a new quarterback with a new offensive coordinator, and you had a bunch of weird crap going on. That like Iowa State was always going to play super vanilla or whatever, but North Dakota seemed to have a very intentional game plan to like they were going to go after it, and they were going to really try to test different areas of the field and things. They were kind of messing around a lot, and then obviously the quarterback was able to scamper free for decent yardage on a number of occasions. I think he had 11 carries, and I think he ended up with like 65 positive yards, not including his sacks, whatever, which is a decent little clip there, and he was able to do it on third down quite a bit. Or if he did it on an earlier down, it was like first down, and he got it to 2nd and 4, which made it a lot harder to get up the field on 2nd and 3rd down type of thing. So it was kind of a weird deal, and I don't know. Like you said, I think North Dakota came in with a game plan where Iowa State was trying to play vanilla as possible, just to get guys on the field and in the field for the game, and just build from there type of thing. Whereas North Dakota basically went full gas from the start.
Yeah, they've got nothing to lose in that game and everything to gain.
They seemed perfectly content to get in there, get their 2-3 score loss, and get out of there.
Yeah. And I mean, I saw somebody post today, like Colorado beats that team last season, I think, by 5. And like Colorado is supposed to be like, have all these top 10 draft picks, and the hype around them. And it's just funny how like, oh, they that was fine, but then Iowa State beats them by 3 scores, and it's like,
yeah. Well, and that kind of shows you where the two programs are, though. Like, and we'll talk about a little bit with the Iowa game too. Is Iowa had their offensive quote unquote explosion last week, but on a rate stat basis, Iowa State's offense was better, and Iowa State fans walked away disappointed, whereas Iowa fans walked away over the moon. So it's just an interesting context where, they didn't put up a lot of points, and the yardage totals weren't huge. But if you really look at and go back and watch the game last Saturday, the offense did fine. Like the passing game was great. I thought the passing game was spectacular. Taylor Mauser called a great game. And as a first game as an offensive coordinator, I thought Taylor Mauser did about as good as you could ever ask for. And, they put together that 97-yard drive where they just carved North Dakota's defense all the way up the field, just dink and dunk and finding space here and there. And the passing game basically found anything it wanted all day. Like there was, Rocco missed a couple throws. So that kind of ended up, and it ended one drive. He missed a couple throws, but after the first couple throws he missed early on, he was accurate. He made good decisions. I thought the passing game looked as good as advertised. And then obviously the running game was fine, I guess. It was fine. They didn't really get a lot of opportunities, but it was fine.
Yeah, I don't think you really got a whole lot out of the running game just because of the amount of the time that they had the ball. So it's not
Abu had 5 carries and Hansen had 6. I think.
And it's not going to be magically better this week going against the stout Iowa defensive line.
No.
So it's not like, there's probably gonna be some overreaction to that when they try to. Maybe they'll have a good day running the ball against Iowa. I don't know, but my money would be on it not happening. So. I don't know. There's still a lot to be desired there with the offensive side of the ball, just because we didn't see it. I mean, it's not that they can't do it; it's just we didn't see it. So, I think could they probably honestly probably could have scored 2 more touchdowns there in the fourth quarter. It just seemed like that they were like they definitely pulled off the gas there when they were just trying to run the ball out, and then
in between that and that 12.5-minute drive, it definitely got rid of at least one, maybe. Probably 2, maybe even 3 possessions that it took away from the offense. So not only did they not try to score, a couple more times in the fourth quarter, but they also were robbed of maybe 2 scores in the second quarter too. So, that game could easily be, that game could have been a 56 or a 49-3 game really fast if it was even a normal-ish game.
Mm-hmm. I think it was funny how last week we were talking about the depth chart and got to the defense and we're like, oh, we don't worry about the defense. I said that. And you kind of watch the game and you're like, man, this offense, they can do it. We just got to get them the ball. And the defense kind of like, not that they played horrible, but like you got to be better on third down. 11 third down conversions, I think it was. Like you got to be better there, especially, against Iowa. But
it kind of seemed like after Caleb Bacon went down that they were really scrambling, trying to figure out what the hell's going to go on, because Caleb was the guy with the headset. He had the earpiece in. He was the guy that the coordinators were talking to on defense, and between that, and he's kind of the leader of that linebacker group. That long drive happened right after Caleb Bacon got hurt. So it seemed to me that drive, they were basically forced to on the fly figure out. Had to reorganize their linebacker group and figure out who's going to go where and what combinations they're going to use and who's going to be the guy with the head, the earpiece in. It just kind of seemed like they were dealing with some internal chaos that drive, and it just resulted in them some misassignments and things like that. Like I don't see that 12.5-minute drive as like a symptomatic thing of a symptomatic.
No, but the Caleb Bacon thing is going to be interesting because you lose your best player at probably your weakest position.
Yeah.
One of. Yeah. So, if you were going to lose a guy, that was probably
you didn't want to lose.
Worst. Yeah. And what concerns me is like reading the stuff online is like, oh, Matt Campbell's lower leg injury.
Classic lower leg injury. Yeah.
That's exactly what he said when I blew mine up, and I was out for like 8 months. Like, I don't know.
It's pretty much a foregone conclusion. I think he's gonna be out for the season. Yeah. And I understand
he keeps saying that he might be able to come back towards the end of the season, which we were doing a little bit of like detective sleuthing in the wide right Slack, trying to figure out what that, because he had surgery on Sunday or Monday. Yeah. And so like what surgery could he have now that could have him back by
high ankle sprain is about high ankle sprain.
One. The only other thing I came up with was like, or that we came up with was like a meniscus situation or something like that.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of the times they like wait on those, but maybe being so early in the year, they went right into it. I don't know.
Yeah. It's hard to say.
I kind of been saying it, and I know nobody's going to believe me and say they're roll their eyes at this, but obviously the Caleb Bacon injury is on the surface level. I think it's bad because that was your starting middle linebacker. He obviously goes down game 1. Not great to ever lose anybody in week 1, but you're literally going to replace him with last year's starting middle linebacker.
Yeah.
And then you have also Zach Lovett behind him, who also played a significant amount last year. Now, I think where the real problem gets into is like, okay, we don't know if Will McLaughlin is going to be back anytime soon. It sounds like it might be a little longer than a couple of weeks.
It sounds like it might be a Caleb Bacon situation.
And I would almost stretch it out to the Carson Willich thing hurts a lot more than the Caleb Bacon things does. And Carson Willich has been deemed out since last spring. So, if we lose another linebacker, then I'm going to start scrambling and running for the hills.
Yeah.
And that's why I again, losing Caleb Bacon is bad, but it's not like, hey, I'm going to go jump off this cliff bad because Carson or Jack Sadowski literally was the starting middle linebacker for the entire season last year. Now, Caleb Bacon did play a little bit of a middle linebacker towards the end of the year, like Kansas State game. But before then, he was primarily, coming off the edge and rushing the quarterback. So it's not like we lost some guy that played middle linebacker for 50 games and in game one. So if Jack Sadowski is back and healthy, which it sounds like he's going to be this week, and then you get Brzezina back as well.
Yep.
And Cooper Ebel plays linebacker like he's got his hair on fire, which I think caused some poor tackling in game for a little bit, but I think that might just been first game thing for him, playing a significant amount.
Because that kid can run, and I think
week
he overran
3, week 4, week 5. I don't think this Caleb Bacon injury is going to loom as large as what we're thinking is. Now you're going against Iowa.
The problem is not yet this weekend, though.
Is that the most way you want to ring in a new linebacking core? Probably not. But
worth noting, the last time they started a true freshman at Iowa was Mike Rose. So
play the cards you're dealt. So here we go. So
I mean, if you're looking at it, to me, your starting 3 is Cooper Ebel, Jack Sadowski, and either Jacob Ellis or Carol Brzezina.
Mm-hmm.
Like that 3, I think feels pretty good. I'm like that starting 3. I'm not really that worried about.
You have 4 linebackers going into the game, or 3 linebackers going into the game this week. Four linebackers that played against Iowa last year. With Klosterman, Ellis, and Sadowski and Lovett.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're bringing in a bunch of dudes that have never played Iowa either.
Right.
But it's still not ideal.
It's really not that it's not that big of a. I know we make it a big deal, like playing Iowa. It's a less physical game than playing Texas. Like I'll say that. Like it's a less physical game than playing. There's a lot of Oklahoma State plays harder. Like there's a lot of games where I felt leaving the game like, man, tomorrow's gonna be rough. But Iowa wasn't really ever one of those games for me.
It's interesting that you say that because I could never figure out how to properly express this, but Iowa is, obviously known to be this kind of old school rough and tumble football team and all this forever. But when I watch Iowa, I don't get the impression that they're an outrageously physical team. They're really fundamentally sound, but Iowa has never struck me as a team that was going to beat the shit out of you for a game or anything like that. They kind of have this weird stable finesse, if that makes sense. I don't know. It's
technical sound football.
It's technically sound football, which kind of it kind of looks physical, but it's really not.
Yeah, they're that pickup basketball team that's 5 white dudes that are just the fundamentals are perfect. None of them can dunk and none of them are very fast, but the fundamentals are just perfect.
Yeah.
It's not like I said, that's the way I always looked at it was waking up the next day and that game was never oh man, I got beat to hell. But there were games on the schedule where it was like that. So I know it's a big deal because Iowa, whatever. But I think they get that name or whatever the genre of football they play is perceived as that because they don't score a lot of points. I think is how they get that name. Oh well, they don't score a lot of points. They must just be ground and pound and eat the clock and
it's the friendly psyop trying to cover up what Iowa actually is.
Yeah, I mean, granted, credit when it's due. I'll give it to them. We've struggled with them in Matt Campbell's tenure. We haven't exactly exceeded in that category, mostly because we always struggled at the beginning of the season. Doesn't really matter who the opponent is. I think if the game's in a week 8 or 9, then as long as Matt Campbell's been at Iowa State, he's probably lost to him once or twice, maybe. So I think it's more of just a beginning of the season is always rough for us than it is Iowa football are these world beaters that are just insane. But that's just my take on it.
Yeah. I guess, do we got anything else with North Dakota that we want to touch on? I mean,
no.
my only thing, like,
this is the classic week 1 to week 2 overreaction. Is week 1, it's their first football game, and forever fans are hyped up for it. And then if it doesn't go exactly the way, like we've already talked about, it's everyone overreacts either way. Like if Iowa now suddenly has the world's greatest offense, and we are going to lose the next 11 games. So
I think the best positive that you can walk away from Saturday with is that, like I said, the passing game I thought was basically as good as advertised, and that looked like a passing game that not only is good enough to kind of get what it wants when it needs to, but I saw Taylor Mauser being a very willing play caller as far as, if the running game's not working, we're not going to bash our heads against a wall trying to make it work. We're gonna throw the ball, and we're gonna be fine with. If the game dictates it, we'll throw the ball 55 times if that's what the game dictates. That's what I saw on Saturdays. I saw a play caller willing to use the pass to open up the run, which I know we've kind of heard it in press conferences before, but I mean, we all know that Matt Campbell wants to get the running game going.
We've been bad about that in the past. Like,
exactly,
running game's not working. Well, we're just going to keep running it until it works.
Look at the Ohio game last year. That's all they did was just bash their head against the wall forever, and then they got their ass beat by Ohio because they just didn't throw the ball. And, maybe that was partially the whole Rocco being a freshman thing, whatever. At a certain point, though, you had to, even in that game, you had to be like, okay, we probably should start throwing the ball a little bit. Well,
I think that's a good segue into the Iowa game, because
one more point quick, though.
Okay.
Is that one thing, another surprise development that showed up earlier than I thought it was going to, is I think we found wide receiver 3 pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. And that looked like Eli Green was great on Saturday. I was very, very impressed with what Eli Green looked like. And to me, as far as I'm concerned, he solidified himself. He is wide receiver 3. And he's a guy that you can take Jalen Noel out, put Eli Green in his spot, and it's a 1-for-1 swap, basically. Like skill wise and athleticism wise, they're almost identical players. So I was really, really happy with what Eli Green looked like.
So every time he caught the ball, it seemed like he didn't have anybody with 5 yards around him. So
he was doing stuff. Matt Campbell did make the comment in the post game that he needs to be better about taking care of the ball, but I feel like that's something that can be coached up.
I guess I didn't even really notice that.
I didn't either, but I wasn't also like, I'm not a head coach that's looking for that shit. So yeah. But anyways,
well, and okay, what I was saying, I guess going into the segue is, that, with Taylor Mauser and, being a willing participant to throw the ball whenever the fuck he felt like it. And maybe Dylan, you could tell me if I'm wrong or not, but it also seems like in the past, we've tried to out Iowa, play Iowa's game and just go into the week and let's, not make the mistakes and just be tough, physical, and, win 10-3. But if Mauser does truly have the keys to the offense, is the way to beat Iowa throwing it 60 times and running it 15 times.
I mean, I hope he has the key, and it looked like it last week. Like, you would have lost your bet inside zone first play.
We did lose the bet. That absolutely happened. We lost the bet. Yeah.
And I think that's like not a bad idea. Like, I'd love to throw the ball 55 times against Iowa because, like, I mean, yeah, I'd love to run for 250 yards on them as well. But like, win the game, and it is what it is. Like, the box score is the box score. It is what it is. No one's going to look at anything other than who won the football game.
Right.
And I think there's been times in the past where, man, we just have better athletes on our offense than they have in coverage on their defense. We can just throw the ball. Now, pass protection is a different story. Now, there's going to have to be some scheming there. I don't know how good they feel with the straight up one-on-one matchups across the board, like this specific week. But there's stuff built in. They're good at that. Like, don't leave a tight end one-on-one with a pass rusher, like stuff like that. Hopefully they take care of that stuff, and I think they will. Protect the quarterback and throw the ball, man. Like, obviously that's our strong point. We have a good running back, and we hope the offensive line is going to come along this year. But if you look at our roster, you're going to say, like, this team can beat you in the passing game. A solid quarterback, and they have 2 of the top 10 receivers in the country. Like, throw the ball.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, I think I would say it's Iowa State should look a lot more like Purdue when they try to beat Iowa. You spread them out, get your athletes on the outside, and make Xavier Nwampa try to cover Jaden Higgins on a deep post or something like that. Like make them make the plays. Because I mean, if you're giving me Jaden Higgins one-on-one with Xavier Nwampa, 25 yards down the field in like on a jump ball situation, I'll take Jaden Higgins on that 10 times out of 10. And Jalen Knoll isn't necessarily, this game may not be the game for Jalen Knoll to be hit on a deep ball, but this is a perfect game for him to get hit on a slant or on a shallow cross or something like that. Just getting
8 yards, catch the ball, run it for another 12
in a nice mesh concept. Like you bring Bramer across on a drag and then Knoll behind him in a mesh, something like that. Like stuff like that is where Jalen Knoll can be really dangerous in this type of game.
But I think we've said this for years after year after year, because you go back to the Jacob Park Hakeem Butler game, right? In Ames, and Hakeem Butler was torching Iowa right over the middle the entire game,
right at the seam.
And that has always been Phil Parker's weakness on the Iowa defense is you get your playmakers against the linebackers. Now, obviously, Iowa has a very good linebacker. This
Jay
year,
Higgins and Nick
Jay
Jackson.
Higgins,
and
they're very good. That might be a different matchup that we may not be able to capitalize on. But in years past, the way to beat Iowa is to attack up through the middle, and that where Ben Bramer, if he's full go this
he's
week,
healthy,
that's a place for him to kind of make a heyday too. So but that's also we're back to throw the ball.
And Rocco seems really comfortable throwing that seam route. When he can get a chance, he seems very comfortable throwing that seam route because it can be kind of a dicey throw especially if you're throwing over a linebacker or something like that. But Rocco seems to be pretty comfortable with that route. So,
and I mean, I get like in years past why we maybe haven't just let it loose and throw it a million times. Their defense is built similar to ours. I know they're different schemes,
right?
But like, they play the same style. Like, hey, we're gonna not give up the big play. We're gonna make this team drive.
Principles. Yeah.
So that does make it a little, like, well, maybe we got to try to drive on these guys, and then next thing you know, like they get a TFL, you try to run inside zone, and then you're behind the sticks. Then you're trying to get a big play, explosive play. Yeah. That's just how they win football games. They're gonna try to get you to turn the ball over, going for something that you don't need to, but. So, I mean, I see both sides of it for sure, but I like that. I like Jalen Knoll all over the middle of the field, finding gaps and make a play with the ball. That's what I like.
I think that 97-yard drive against North Dakota showed us a lot of what Iowa State will want to do against Iowa, where you can really dink and dunk. You get Jalen Knoll in the flat and let him go try to beat a guy or something like that. Maybe get Abu Sab on a screen, or you get Jaden Higgins on a nice comeback route or something. I think that kind of stuff is how Iowa State's going to want to attack it. And the challenge for Taylor Mauser and for Rocco Becht in this game is, like you said, is to not get greedy. Iowa will give you 5 yards on any catch.
Yep.
They will give you 5 to 8 yards on pretty much any catch you want, but they're not going to give you 10 to 15. They're going to take that chunk of the field completely out of the game. So as long as Taylor Mauser and Rocco do not get impatient and they keep being, okay, we'll take 5. We'll take another 5. We'll take another 5. We'll take another 5. As long as they don't get impatient and then try to force too much, Iowa State's got the passing game, and we saw it they've got the passing game to execute that game plan.
Yeah, it's a waiting game, right? You don't want to get impatient on the offense. You take take it. Whoever gets impatient first, it gets burnt, right? The defense gets tired. They're like, hey, we gotta take this away. Like, we can't keep giving this up, and then you can take your shot down the field.
And it's like, you gotta protect the football too, because I mean, if you give up a defensive or a special teams touchdown at Iowa, you've basically lost. You're done.
I mean, you could almost argue too that yes, very true. But I mean, it's like Iowa. If you turn the ball over once, you might be done.
You might be done. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you guys know, but we talk a lot about that in college and in the pros. Like the turnover margin battle is like probably the biggest correlation to win and loss.
Yep.
So
well, in last season, actually over the last few years, not including 21, where Brock had a real bad day. I would say is generally hung with Iowa in the turnover margin fairly well. And actually, if you go over like last season, Iowa State actually forced more turnovers defensively than Iowa did in 2023. 4 more turnovers. So, Iowa last year, at least anyways, was
but
not
in terms of this game, we made the crucial mistake.
Sure, right. Yeah, it's about making
Last year.
it's about making the really big mistake, like 2019 with the fucking muff punt, stupid shit like that, like where
Well,
you're.
that should, yeah.
That feels like I realize I may have ripped a Band-Aid off there. I apologize. But
no, like that play sucked, right? Like it sucks. You don't want, but like we should have never been in that situation. Like we were still, you're still losing the game with, I don't even know, 45 seconds left. Like it wasn't like, oh, we secure that punt, we had a win. People seem to think that, but like,
yeah, it was kind of like, well, I think it was because at the time the offense had really been driving. I mean, I think they were averaging 8 yards a play that game.
Yeah, so we just like, we should have never been in that situation. The game should have been over by then. Like, they should have been able to recover that muff punt, go score a touchdown, and still lose by 2 or 3 scores. Like, it just should have been over. So, I mean,
So
I'm the player. I'm always gonna like try to take credit for the loss and not blame it on bullshit. But
it's always interesting how that, because I think as a player, former player, you're more likely to like, oh well, if we had done this in the second quarter, this wouldn't even have been an issue in the fourth quarter type of thing. Whereas the fan sees, well, all this shit happened up till now. If this thing happen, then it doesn't matter what happened before that, because this would have changed the outcome. And it's kind of
it's kind of like
interesting
kickers.
how that works.
It's like kickers and stuff. Like your kicker misses a game-winning field goal, like it's not his fault. There were times where you could have won the game before that.
You shouldn't have even had to been on the field. Yeah,
unless your name's Cody Parkey.
Or God forbid Jonathan Garibay.
Oh, that's what I wanted to add to the
God bless.
To talking about North Dakota was like everybody's freaking out, but like at least we're not Florida State. So that we have that going.
Oh God,
we are not Florida State. We are not Florida State. That is absolutely.
You have to be a special kind of shitty to be 0-2 through week 1 and 0-2 in your conference.
Yeah.
Actually,
wild.
Florida State having a rough go of it.
Yeah, they're I saw on the Florida the threads, the Florida State threads. There were some fans like looking for some lawyers. They were trying to see if they can
sue for the NIL money.
Hilarious, classic.
There was some good stuff on that.
I know there was a lot of Iowa fans wondering about that with Caden Proctor too. So
oh yeah,
that was a whole deal. But anyway, so let's. One thing we probably should talk about, though, I guess, is looking with Iowa State's defense and Iowa's offense specifically, because Iowa did something last week. They put up points on the board, but it was kind of a weird 40 points.
Honestly, I don't think they're going to come out and be that, like, okay, let's rewind this a little bit. Like,
you know what's funny is I think what we were talking about in the wide right Slack might come true, where they go off in this offensive explosion when Kirk isn't there, and as soon as Kirk Ferentz comes back, they just go back to sucking.
You can't tell me that Kirk Ferentz looked at Iowa State's game tape last week and was like, you know what? We're going to run the ball, and we ain't going to do anything that we did last week. Like, we're going to like Mark Weissman the hell out of somebody, whatever that, or who's the other running, what was the guy that came in with Beathard in Ames, their other running Wadley?
Wadley was 2017.
Anyway, it don't matter, but you can't tell me he's looking at this and be like, you know what? We can run the ball.
Yeah.
No problem.
I mean, if I were Iowa and I saw the North Dakota tape, I would be like, we're going to run directly at their fucking linebackers. That's right. That's what I would do.
Right. That's what I mean. So it's like, that's probably what they're thinking. I mean, maybe, but I don't think
you get this weird like chess game going on where it's like we're thinking that, which means John Haycock knows we're thinking that. So is he thinking that?
Kirk Ferentz is not an idiot, right? Like I know he coaches for the team we all hate, but he is not an idiot, and he can with his eyes see. Okay, Iowa State has really good defensive backs. Do I trust Cade McNamara to throw against Malik Verdon and Miles Purchase? I don't know, maybe, but he's not going to go and chuck it 40 yards deep all the time. And then also that one touchdown pass, he just literally threw up in the triple coverage, which granted, I know Rocco did it too, but whatever. But it's not like it was some weird, like they literally obliterated this team with some weird offensive explosion. It was 6-0
halftime.
So
that first half was
are they better on offense for like if you go at the end of the year, are they going to be better on offense than they were a year ago? probably because you can't.
It's hard to be worse.
Yeah, it's hard to be worse than a dog turd.
There was no floor to go under.
Yeah.
Now, are they going to have the same offensive output that they did last week against Illinois State, against Iowa State? No. Probably not. No. But it's also a rivalry. Weird things could happen. Maybe they do. I doubt it. But
I think Iowa State would love nothing more than to have Cade McNamara throw the ball 40 times. It's not going to happen because Kirk Ferentz isn't dumb.
And I think that's you go back and look at our stuff too, and you could tell like CyHawk wasn't throwing anything at North Dakota. But that turns into this week, throw shit at Cade McNamara, make him beat you.
I think you don't want to completely sell out to stop the run, but I think you can dedicate your energy to stopping the run and to getting pressure on Cade. And if Iowa State was able to get a couple passes to Luke Lachey in the middle over Bro Freeler, it is what it is. But I think on the long haul, I think getting pressure on Cade is going to pay off a lot more. Than
I will take my risks to let Cade McNamara beat us. I mean, it's not. He was recruited to Michigan for a reason. There's talent in that arm of his. It's there. It can come out at any point in time. We don't know when, we don't know how, but I will take my risks and make that guy beat you because he has not beat a quality opponent at his time at Iowa yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think the score kind of like you said,
Iowa State as a quality appointment. Sorry,
the score is a little like misleading to me. It looks like a team, a Big Ten team that comes in and they're deeper, they're stronger, they're faster, not than everybody, but than Illinois State. And Illinois State kind of hung in there a little bit, and there was some bad football in the first half. First half of the first week, there's bad football all over the, whatever game you turned on. But I think they just ran out of gas, maybe. Iowa, they're much deeper. They're much stronger. They're much deeper on the depth chart.
Like everything Illinois State had to get it to 6-0 at half.
Yeah, and then the wheels kind of fell off.
The dam broke a little bit. Yeah, and that's why I'm not a believer that Iowa's offense is super real.
Yeah.
That goes with the week one overreactions, right? It's just and I mean, I'll give it to them. Let them be excited for actually scoring 40 points in offense because that's been like 6 years since that's even happened for them. But again, you rewind to last year, they scored 40 points against Western Michigan too. So it's like, okay, they're probably going to be better in offense this year. We'll give them that. But I don't think this game's going to be some over 35 points for either team, really. So,
I mean, I think the week one overreactions, they go both ways, and you see both sides of it with Iowa State and Iowa. Like, our fans are overreacting at our game, and their fans are overreacting at their game. Just the opposite takes.
I mean, and I'll admit, when I was driving home on Saturday, I was like, that was a bummer. But
it was probably a bummer for the fan side of things more so than the actual football aspect of it.
Yeah, because it was like, I want to be on the record here that I even said last week that it wasn't going to be a 42-6 game or some shit like that. I was on the record that it wasn't going to be that big of a blowout. But
if you step back, Levi, and said, okay, did I have fun Saturday? You're going to say yes.
Oh, Saturday was a great time.
The overreaction really
season. We would have had to lose by like 2 scores for that to overall be a net negative day for me.
I think a loss in general is probably a net negative day, but
I don't.
We'll take the win.
Yeah, but you didn't see how fun my tailgate was. So
I'm not like. I don't think anybody should really have overreacted to that. I mean, I think it's just a generalization or the general social media has brought us to this point for every game, no matter what. But there were years where we were even getting our ass kicked by North Dakota State, triple overtime against UNI. Not pointing fingers at Dylan here.
Happened. I mean, it happened.
It did happen. It's on the internet. It happened.
I was really expecting I was gonna get murdered after that comment. I called Marchie slow one day and he about killed me, so that was fun.
that was a lot. You're not the only one. I feel like a lot of people called Marchie slow.
An unwise comment.
I feel like a lot a lot of people did.
I like Marchie. You could unhook the wagon against Oklahoma, and he's like, "What?" He's like, he was about like this. He's like, "I'm gonna anyways, but
he's
it's
runner.
like
he's a route runner.
We literally had, it was warm, obviously, in the stadium, but then you had, it wasn't raining. You had the first football game of the season. You won by 18 points. Now, like, okay, you won it by 18 points against the FCS team. Missed me with that shit. Toss it out the window. Like, 18 points is not a close game. And then everybody had fun along the way. It's all about the friends you made along the way, right? and right. Cyclone Larry died in the middle of the span of a week. So,
how the mighty have fallen.
Yeah, so it's like it was a good time,
This has been like the most bizarre 4 days of Cyclone Twitter I think I've maybe ever seen. At least I can't think of anything like off the top of my head that was weirder.
Oh, the gambling thing was kind of wild.
It was wild, but that was so spread out over a couple months that there was never a 3-day span that was fucking crazy like the last 4 days have been. Between Saturday at the end of the game and right now has been an astonishingly weird time in Cyclone Twitter. And
I think it's just funny that we've gotten to this point where everyone wants to light the football facility on fire after winning a game by 18 points in week 1.
That's how you know the standard was raised.
I mean, that's good. Yeah. I mean, we're
just wild.
I mean, people getting pissed off about a 3 touchdown win is a lot better than it was in 2015 with Paul Rhodes, where we were begging for more fumbles in the Kansas State game so he would have to get fired. It was
well, that's just how it is now, right? 10 years ago, a win in week anything was let's fucking party.
Cause for celebration, yeah.
Now
win or lose, we still booze.
Yeah.
Still true today, though.
Yeah, definitely still true today. So it's just kind of a sign of
they need to be one, be fucking grateful for once, you ungrateful freaking pieces of shit. You have a football team.
Let her rip, man.
You have a football team that you can go into every single Saturday, right? I'm talking every single game on the schedule, and you get a chance to win that game every single week.
Yep.
In 2014, when you went to play Oklahoma, was any fan oh, we can win this? No. So
definitely not that game.
You get a chance to see a win every Saturday on the schedule, and I think that's an underrated thing to have because there's programs that don't have that, and we were one of them.
We were definitely one of them. Yeah, so it's good. So
you ungrateful sons of bitches.
Yeah, you ungrateful fuckers. So no, I get it
though. I get it. The standard does need to be raised. You don't want to just sit around and fluctuate between 5 and 7 and 7 and 5. And
the famous Matt Campbell quote from when he got hired is that bullshit teams care about bullshit programs care about 6 and 6 and stuff like that or whatever.
Yeah, you obviously don't want to just sit around and be okay with that all the time, but it's
better than it was.
Yeah,
a lot better than it was
for sure.
And that's why I think you get people our age, Matthias and I are. I'm 32, will be 33 in May. And you're what, 33, 34, man, Matthias, something like that. Whatever. That group, we are still plenty old enough to remember when it was complete fucking dog shit or whatever. And it has been dog shit for most of our lives or whatever. And, just in the last, 8 years, it's been good or whatever. We're plenty old enough to appreciate that. But it's just funny that there are kids alive today that their entire consciousness, their conscious experience of Cyclone football has only been the Mac Campbell era. They only know good Cyclone football. So when they see, it's a team that should be good, and they only go 7 and 5, and
their worst Cyclone experience was a 4-8 team that had 2 drop passes to make them bowl eligible.
Right.
Oh no.
And it's not just the Iowa State fans. It's they've the culture around Iowa State's kind of changed nationally, which is good too. I'll go talk to people, random people when I'm out and about. Some people will, what sport do you play? Because I'm fucking behemoth.
Large.
Yeah. So the conversation starts, and I remember when I was just going to school or just committed or maybe a redshirt freshman or whatever, and the reactions from random people who aren't Iowa State fans, oh, you played Iowa State. It was kind of ugh. And then now,
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Now when you played at Iowa State, God, good football team.
Yeah.
So
the program is in a place now where national experts routinely talk about Iowa State like, oh, what are they going to do this year? Like they talk about Iowa State the way they do, any other big program or whatever. And when it used to be that they just like if they got mentioned on game day as like the last pick, as the last game to get picked because Iowa State was playing Oklahoma State and they were just picking them to pick that Oklahoma State was going to be us 4 touchdowns. Like, oh man, we got mentioned on game day or whatever. Now it's, we hosted 2 game days in 3 years or whatever. And now Iowa State is a program that even national pundits feel obligated to talk about because Iowa State is nationally relevant now. So like it's come so far, and it's so much better having fans that act like a fucking lunatics around it, like and overreact to losses and stuff like that. It's so much better having that as a fan base than like what we saw with basketball towards the end of the Steve Prohm era, where that 2020 2021 season nobody gave a shit. Like it got to the point where like I genuinely there would be like I'd find out like on Twitter like an hour before tip off that there was a fucking game that night because I didn't give a shit or whatever. Like I didn't care about making time to watch the Iowa State basketball game because they were just so bad. And they were never
brutal to write game previews that year.
Oh my God, it was awful. It was a nightmare to cover basketball that year, and the fan base was gone. They did not care about basketball, which is it takes a lot to make Iowa State fans not care about basketball.
Yeah, I mean, imagine doing this every week when you're like 0-4 and we play Oklahoma State this week. Sick. What do you guys think's gonna happen?
Oh, we have.
Oh, we've done that.
Like, well, maybe if we come out with the right scheme, we might lose by 3 scores instead of 6.
Like, I hope they go out and everybody has fun. That's really what I care about. It's all about having fun.
I was on. Let's see. We had that was my first year. No, it might have been 2 years left in the Paul Rhodes era, but yeah, doing this well, not this one, but it was, I don't even remember what the fuck it was called, it was
just called the Wide Right Natty Light podcast.
It was me and a guy that's
listen to it on Spotify.
Yeah. And doing that during like the year Paul Rhodes was fired. Yeah. That's how far podcasting has come. We used to call in to this web service.
Yeah, Blog Talk Radio. Holy cow.
And talked on our phone for an hour like this about a podcast.
I mean, it was literally like you were calling into a radio show, but you were just all calling into the same radio show to host the radio show. It was a nightmare or whatever. So yeah, we've come even Wide Right has come a long ways in the Matt Campbell era too. We have microphones and podcasting equipment. But yeah, so it's a lot better to have what we have in football and really in basketball too now versus what we saw in basketball at 2021, where there was just nothing, just nobody cared. Apathy, fan apathy is the worst possible thing you can have. Even pissed off fans is better than apathetic fans, and Iowa State fans are generally not pissed off in the Matt Campbell era. But I think it's more because I think the angst that we do see around like stuff like last weekend where people are impatient is because, we saw like the 2021 team, they were talked about as like a dark horse playoff team, maybe, stuff like that. Like there was really high expectations.
It should have been.
And I think that the expectations were 100% justified.
Yeah. Like I've been over this before. We lost me, Kane, and Jaquan Bailey and Landon Akers. Jaquan starter, sure. Me sort of starter, whatever. I played a lot, but like role players, kind of. Kane, like good player, role player. Landon, role player.
You still had all of the major contributors.
Yeah, like yeah. So I mean, even I was like a little disappointed.
Then they go 7-5, so that's a disappointment. And then you have the 2022 season, which was 4-8. You obviously two drop catches away from a bowl game, but still a super young team. And then last year they, I think like
overachieved by far.
It was last season was funny because I think before the season we're like 7-5, that's fine. 7-5 is a perfectly reasonable expectation. And then they totally shit the bed against Ohio, and then we're like, oh fuck, now they're gonna win. They're gonna win one game. They're gonna go 1-11, and it's gonna suck ass or whatever. But then they come back and then go 7-5, which is what we all expected, but just completely backwards of how we thought they would get.
Yeah.
So it like there's this lingering fan feeling over the last 3 seasons that it feels like the program plateaued a little bit. Now it was kind of weird because COVID threw a wrench in the plan, so the roster turnover was a weird deal for a little there for a few years, and then you had some underachieving teams. But there's a feeling for a lot of fans, that's kind of just sitting in the back of their head where it feels like the program plateaued a little bit. And so naturally they're going to be impatient to try, okay, when are they going to stop winning 7 or 8 games and they're going to start and they're going to win. They're going to finally fucking win 10 games and they're going to actually, win a conference title versus just go to the game or something like that.
Yeah. And I mean, those 7 and 8 game win seasons that we had, we got to remember that was coming from literally the laughing stock of college football.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it took to get those 7 and 8 win seasons was, I mean, you've got like somewhere between 5 and 10 guys that aren't just in the NFL that are like major contributors in the NFL.
Yeah.
So like, it obviously doesn't happen overnight. I know it's 8 seasons now. Campbell era, like
in the 9th. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like you want to keep seeing improvement, but I mean, God, it's hard. Like it is hard.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Well, you want to talk about seeing improvement. The one area that needs to improve, week 2 match. No, week 2 matchup against Iowa.
Yeah. See, my take on this whole game too is a little off the wall.
I'm interested.
It's in the grand scheme of if your football team has a good season or not, it's not that important. It's really not.
Yeah. It means a lot in the week before and the week after, and that's about it.
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, you've seen it year in, year out. Iowa State loses this game. They go on to have a really good season. Iowa wins this game. They go on to be, I mean, some years they've had a good win column because, they play the school of the blind and then the school of the deaf and then whoever else. But like, it doesn't really dictate your season a whole lot. Now, granted, it's great, right? Like it's great for the state. It's great for the fan base. It's great for a lot of things. It doesn't keep you out of a conference championship game, which now isn't going to keep you out of the playoff. If you're in the conference championship game, you kind of control your own destiny there. It's just really not like, and fans will hate to hear that from a player, but it's no more important than last week or next week. Like it's just another game on the schedule, really. And
and the way the playoff and college football are right now too, like if Iowa State was going to like theoretically contend for a playoff spot or something like that, like they were probably going to have to win the conference title to get into a playoff anyways. And like you said, losing to Iowa doesn't change that at all.
Yeah. And it sounds weird to hear it or say it, but like you almost don't want your team and your coaching staff to treat the game differently because then you've got a whole nother slew of problems arising. Like you treat it as a football game. It's kind of the whole, like, you can only play so hard. You can only care so much. Like you should care to your maximum value and you should play as hard as you can all 12 games. So if you're playing harder against Iowa, then your priorities are a little fucked up because you should be playing as hard as you can every Saturday. So, I mean, big game, sure. But I think the big game is like more for fans of the teams, college football in general, than it is inside of either building. Because, I mean, I think they talk, it's their Super Bowl. Both teams say that. It's this dumbest argument ever. Both teams are going into this game just like they're playing anybody else. Nobody's doing anything different. They're going to do the same thing all week in practice. Sounds boring, but I mean, that's just what it is. The season, it's a marathon, not a sprint, and you get in a routine and you want to stick to it, and that's just what it is. I think literally both buildings this week, pretty similar stuff. Maybe some bulletin board material here and there, but
yeah.
I mean, we want to win, obviously, but
that would be ideal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, do we want to give predictions at all, or what do we?
Yeah.
Then what do we think, or I guess with that prediction, one key to the game, and I don't care who goes first.
Dylan, you're up first.
A score?
New guy. You need a key to the game and a score.
A key to the game. Okay. Well, it's pretty obvious. I'm going to take the layup on the key to the game will be the turnover battle.
Damn.
If you lose that, you are going to lose the game. Guaranteed. If you lose the turnover battle and you win the game, then one, that's embarrassing for Iowa, and two, you should be excited about the rest of the season because, I mean, that's tough to do. But that's a big deal. And score, man, I got a lot of faith in this Mauser guy.
You and me both. You and me both. I don't think people are talking enough about how good Taylor Mauser was last week.
31-17.
Oh, shit. 31.
Eesh.
Holy cow.
I want to score more points on Iowa than we did on North Dakota after seeing all the stuff I read this week.
If Iowa State scores 31 on Iowa's defense, Iowa State's in the top 20 next week in the poll.
Oh, yeah.
Easy.
I think we're gonna find something this week. I don't know what it is. They're gonna find something and they're gonna expose the shit out of it.
I hope.
Matthias?
Dude. Eventually, it's gonna change. I mean, I'm a glasses half full guy. Like,
yeah,
I drafted Kyle Pitts on my fantasy team. Like, I think
you're delusional is what you are.
I think he's gonna change. I think eventually he's gonna put it together. I think eventually we're gonna see a CyHawk game that's not boring as dog shit.
Well,
and
yeah,
Dylan, I'm usually with you on that. As being a Cubs fan, I waited forever for a World Series. I'm still waiting for a Bears quarterback, so it's gonna, the odds are there with that happening too. So eventually, but I'm not going the glass half full this week because I just don't see it happening. And that is just me being a bad fan or something like that. But it's not saying that, like, I'm not confident in this group as a football team. Like, obviously, we know Rocco's very good. I think this team can compete for a Big 12 title. I think I'm just more like on the back of the what's happened every other year, leaning on that.
Yeah,
show me you can beat Iowa again, not just that one time in Iowa City 2 years ago. Until
the game too.
Yeah, and until you do it, because I think Kirk Ferentz took the same approach that kind of like Matt Campbell is with this game as well, and to start his career, and he lost the game more often than not. And it's pretty well publicized that he kind of changed his tone a little bit towards this game. When Matt Campbell was hired, and maybe himself personally, maybe not the team, because what you said, maybe the team is preparing the same way they do every other week because of routines and things like that. But maybe Kirk Ferentz put a little extra something into it himself to prepare for this game. And it's obviously has shown because Iowa is 8 out of 10 now in the series in the last 10. So until we have that from our team, I'm still going to pick Iowa, and I'm going to take it 21-17, but key to the game, and I'll flip it the other way. If Iowa State is going to win, it's going to be the play of the offensive line, not necessarily in the run game, because I don't think, even if Iowa State was a good run blocking team before this, I think it would still be a tough stretch to run against the Iowa front seven. But it's just going to be keeping Rocco Beck upright and not having him have happy feet to lead to a big mistake. Because I think that's where Rocco's going to make his mistake. It's not between the ears. It's where it's going to be getting off rhythm, just his feet pointing not where they need to be, his footwork being off, whatever it is that's going to cause him to have a bad pass. And you're going to have like a Sebastian Castro pick one off and run it back again.
All right. So my key, I think, because I was going to say turnovers like Dylan, but for the sake of saying something else, I think the key here, I think the key to this game is Taylor Mauser. And I think it's him, a combination of he and Rocco Beck not getting impatient and being able to repeatedly take whatever Iowa gives you and be okay with it. That might be only 3 yards, it might be 8 yards, whatever it is. But if you get behind the sticks, do not get greedy. continue to take what they will give you. If you have to punt and win the field position game, go for it. That's okay. I promise you, it's okay to punt against Iowa. Like, they would love to punt back. They would love nothing more than to punt it right back to you. So, as far as I'm concerned, I would rather punt on 4th and 1 than risk throwing directly into the middle of Iowa's defense and then getting the pick in our side of the field or something like that. Do not take any, you're going to have to take some risks just because it's a good defense. And you're just going to have to sometime. But taking care of the football is the fastest way to give yourself a chance to beat Iowa, because they are not going to fuck up very often. And you need to not give them opportunities to take advantage of your fuck ups. So that said, I will be dead into my fucking casket before I pick the Iowa Hawkeyes win a fucking football game. So fuck them. 21-14 clowns.
I'm a big proponent of changing up the juju of things, and for the last forever in my entire life, I've picked Iowa State to win this game. So in the spirit of changing up the vibes and the overall morale of our beatings, I'm still going to stick with the Iowa win, 21-17, because reverse psychology.
Well, you're a Cubs and a Bears fan, so I'm okay with you picking Iowa.
Breaking news, the Cubs threw a no-hitter tonight.
Also a Bulls fan. Yeah.
Well, okay. Jerry Reinsdorf must die. Just kidding. No, not.
Closet Hawk. First Closet Hawk. You're a closet. You and Dan McCartney need to go have dinner, you fucking Closet Hawks.
Oh, shit.
Reverse psychology, boys.
Dude, I always thought it was hilarious. He'd come give us these hype talks and stuff and talk to the team. And the whole time I'm just like, he probably did this in Iowa City last week.
Like a week ago.
Matias actually does have the Brett Bielema calf tattoo of the Tiger Hawk.
There you go.
Yeah.
Wait, I do? What? No.
It's not on my.
Well,
it's on my calf. It's on my ass cheek.
My skeleton Frank back there sitting on the freezer. He's still waiting for an Iowa State win over Iowa. So
he was alive the last time Iowa State ran for 200 yards.
So Frank back there is alive when Iowa State had a good run block.
All righty, we got anything else we want to?
It's probably Dylan's crackback block against Oregon.
Probably, it was legit.
Was
that game weird? That game had to have been weird.
It was weird
in that big fucking stadium with nobody there.
Yeah, they the only tickets were our tickets to family, and they roped off 5 seats in between all the families. It was weird.
That'd be a weird.
It felt like a practice almost.
Must have felt nice to go out and beat some ass though, so that probably helped.
Yeah, well, that was cool. Yeah, I don't know. It was.
That whole season would have been weird.
Well, it sucked because we were, would we lose the Big 12 championship by 6?
Yeah, and on that, it came right down to the end too. Just that one pick.
Yeah, pick on 3rd down, and it just the whole thing was a little sour because of that, and you're in a weird season. Played good football all year, excluding week 1, and if you win that Big 12 championship game, you're looking at a pretty strong playoff resume. You're going to be right there, 4, 5, 6.
If you guys had won the Big 12 title, I'm fairly confident you guys would have been in the playoff.
Right. So it was weird for sure. But then at the same time, you're like, well, we got New Year's Six Bowl, so we better go beat some ass.
And beat ass, you guys did. That was a good time.
They were a good team. They just.
I will tell you that the Twitter Oregon fans were kind of annoying, but the different journalists, USU people, whatever, the us of Oregon, they were really cool, and they were good shit.
Yeah, they just. I'm not really sure.
Kind of a fever dream.
We not notorious for just going out and imposing our will on people. We got in a lot of while I played, we got in a lot of close games, and we found a way to win a lot of the time, and that's just how it was. But it was nice to go out with just like
Just kind of
beating
shit on them.
Yeah. I mean, we got that way towards the end that year. Like, I was out. I missed the West Virginia game with a lower leg surgery. But that was fun being on the sideline for that because we that one actually was just high ankle sprain surgery. So it was I probably should have not played anymore, but I said no. Came here to play in a Big 12 championship. I'm not fucking sitting out of this shit.
Fuck that. Oh yeah. All right, you boys ready to wrap her up?
You bet.
Yeah, I mean, I hope we come back here at some point again, and we can have a little glass of bourbon and talk about how we beat Iowa's ass. That'd be fun.
If they can do it, we've got a whole bye week next week. We can fucking do whatever.
That's true. That's
nightcap. Nightcap next week gonna be pretty fucking lit if we win this weekend.
It's kind of a shitty bye week.
Yeah, it is.
It is a very shitty bye week because it's not even like between non-con and Big 12. It's just
right
there.
It's between who do we even play next? I don't know.
Arkansas State next.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, like
kind of a trap game.
That is a trap game. Arkansas doesn't play them because of that reason.
Yeah. All righty. Matthias, what do you got going on for game day plans on Saturday?
I refuse to answer that question.
Why do you refuse to answer that question?
Because I know what's going to happen.
What's going to happen?
You know what?
What do you got? What do you got going on this weekend, Matthias?
Okay, fine.